I told him that I've got Dr. Moizigwe from the southeast, from the south, and then I've got Sajo from Adamawa State in the north, and so I want to bring another person from the middle belt. So that's why I called him. He said, "Well, Adamawa is middle belt, so why am I excluding?" I said, "Well, the definition, because he's a northern Muslim." He said, "No." So when he was now talking, he said, "We the north and us." So it was like, wow. So middle belt is no longer the north in his own, and he said it unconsciously. So it's already, unconsciously that this is the reality.
Yes, that is the position. And the president is, my brother, my only consolation that I'm an Igbo man today is that I have the River Niger divided one. But the kind of Igbo leaders are now, you can imagine they are talking of presidency will come to the south. The only thing the Igbo will is the issue that no right-thinking person will think that the present political situation, demography, landscape in Nigeria today, we allow free and fair election in 2023. It is not possible.
It's not possible.
It is not possible. And you are talking of Igbo president. You have not even looked at now. We talked about children voting before, in the primary school voting. Have we done anything to arrest such a situation? If either by stopping it in that site or by mobilizing our own children to register too. And they are dictating, this is the number, these are the number of voters in the southeast, number of voters in the district, and we are just watching them. Look at PAP. We have senators, we have members of the House of Representatives. How many of them walked out? How many of them came out and said, look, we and what? Oh, no. My brother. I'm not a problem, man.
Oh, Igbo leader, our problem is Igbo leadership. Exactly. Our problem, the type of Igbo leaders we have, they are not leaders anyway. They are just gangsters.
Because, oh, no. I don't understand. And even the youth too. You don't have proactive youth. Because, take for instance, for Nnamdi. If that their ESN, that they had only directed it on Fulani herdsmen, moderate Fulani herdsmen, and bandits terrorizing Igbo land, they should have garnered enough sympathy from the people.
Yeah. But, that thing, I don't know whether it was sabotage or outside people, because they continue to deny that we are not the people, unknown gunmen, killing policemen, burning police stations. So, no. I don't know.
He couldn't have said that. He job political. Who was Ikonso? Who was Ikonso? Now, they have been picking them one after the other.
Yeah.
One after the other.
And it is the I don't want to when they never expose.
Yes. How many Boko Haram? Now, Ndibo went out to deny IPOB. We are not for IPOB. Is it not 1 week later, Nnamdi Kanu was apprehended? Which northern leader has had the gut to come out and say, we oppose to Boko Haram? Just tell me one northern leader, we oppose to bandits. We oppose to Boko Haram.
But they have said it. Oh my God, they have said it. They have always said it that these people are criminals that should be killed. Like
which people?
Zamfara State Governor, Kaduna State Governor, even the Sultan Dasuki has openly lambasted the bandits.
Okay, the bandits, but they brought the bandits themselves. They brought the bandits. It's not a question of they are criminals, that yet they have somebody meeting with them. Yeah, they have somebody meeting them. Who is Sheikh? What is Zumi Abi, and so on and so forth? Who is he? That even when the SSS
but Gumi, sometimes when I talk about it's just like when I told someone today, when you say Igbos are talking about the presidency and still talking about secession, I point out to them, look, the people seeking for Igbo presidency are not the same Igbo seeking for secession. So when we talk about Gumi, Gumi does not speak for the North.
Yes.
Gumi is just an individual. So he's fighting for his own interest. So I wouldn't take what Gumi said as representing Igbo, Northern leadership, because if you want an Igbo, or Hanese said their own, IPOB said their own, governors said their own. So when, for instance, Hanese said, IPOB can say, no, Hanese does not speak for me. When IPOB say, Hanese said, no, IPOB does not speak for me. So when Gumi, in that same mannerism, if Gumi said, the five will say no, Gumi is talking rubbish. So I wouldn't always want to equate whatever Gumi is doing and ascribe it to the North. No, they're all different individuals. It's just like when this coalition of Arewa youth issued quit notice, and then our people start fretting, no, the North is asking us to go. No, it's just a coalition of youths. And then the governors now said, no, Igbos, you are here to stay, don't go anywhere. And we didn't go. So I wouldn't ascribe what coalition of Northern youth say as the position of the North. No, I don't take it that way.
Okay.
That's all the way I say this. I say these things.
You are speaking as a gentle, critically minded Igbo man. I know the way these people operate. They have what we call positioned spoilers. You say this, you say this, you say this, from different angle. And the main leaders will be, will be there watching. Whatever thing Gumi said has the blessing of the Northern Caucus.
I don't think so. I don't think so, sir. I don't believe so. Because I belong to some, there are some politicians who added me to their groups. So you can focus on Northern young men asking, why hasn't government moved against Gumi? So if you got the same anger which we feel, but these are also Fulani. Like one of my friends, he said Fulani from Kano State, a member of APC, always say, but why should we allow Gumi to be meeting bandits and then he has not been picked up by the police?
That is the question I'm telling you.
It doesn't mean it doesn't mean but it doesn't mean that he has the support of the Northern Caucus, because that government.
The Northern Caucus, is it that boy? Is it that man who
No. But protesting? Is Buhari part of the Northern Caucus?
Buhari?
Yeah. Of course. So that Buhari hasn't acted. That's what I'm trying to say. That Buhari heading the federal government have not taken certain actions doesn't mean it has the blessing of the Northerner, because politicians get as them they do. Good luck, Jonathan, and then because some of these things, people will also ask, why hasn't the federal government moved against Boko Haram? Why even we saw Boko Haram coming to people continue to say it's because PDP wanted to use them for election purposes, Jonathan, but it is not so. I always try to distinguish between government incompetence, government inaction, and a caucus. Man, no. Sometimes, okay, let me give an example. About the same way, Nnamdi Kanu was for how many years now? When did he run away from Nigeria? What, 2018, 2019?
That should be 2018.
So Nnamdi Kanu was here. About the same way our government is judged, but about the same question I ask. If federal government does not like what Nnamdi Kanu is doing,
yes,
and they know that he's in London, moving around freely, why haven't they applied to the British government to extradite into Nigeria? In fact, at the point, a lot of Southeastern politicians believe that it is the federal, that Nnamdi Kanu has a deal with the federal government, and they told me this, pump and plain, that he has a deal with the federal government, that they want to use him to spoil Igbo presidency. But you see that it is not the case. So sometimes when government fails to act, it may mean that either, well, they don't deem it expedient to do so, or they have not adverted in their mind to do so, or that they feel it's not necessary to do so, or they may simply be incompetent A lot of things may make government not to take certain actions. That's why I sometimes see this. So I'm not always quick to ascribe government inaction to a conspiracy somewhere, that somewhere there is a plan going on. I don't know whether my point is coming out the way I want it to be.
Your point is coming based on your orientation.
Not orientation. Critical thinking. I analyze events objectively.
No, you see, critical thinking still has orientation, goes by a certain dimension.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
It cannot be isolated. Yes, for your own orientation.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, you are talking of reasoning. When you take your orientation, you present your reasoning. It looks perfect. It looks, truthful, convincing. Another man takes the same topic on his own orientation. He stands. He presents it.
Another thing that chapter one of government. Sometimes there are elements of government that may have their own agenda. Dr. Amar Sajo, good evening. Sometimes there are elements of government that may have their own agenda. The president may be there, and then it may be that maybe his chief of army staff may have his own agenda. It may even be that his own inspector general of police may have his own agenda. It may be that he's the chief of staff, he's a national security advisor, may have his own agenda. So in government, there are a lot of elements who may have their own agenda for whatever it may be, that may not necessarily be a collective action of government. I don't know whether you've noticed that as well.
It is impossible. It is impossible.
No, it's not impossible. Haven't you seen it with Buhari government, for instance, where Buhari will it's like, Dr. Mas, anyway, government, Dr. Sajo, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's my pleasure to have you here. Yeah. We are already speaking, discussing the issue in the sideline, and we've not started.
Okay.
Yeah, we've not started.
You see, let me just tell you something. If you're in government, you operate within the political frequency of the leader of the government or the caucus, because every president operates within a given caucus. You have to act. The point is that there are people who act proactively within the same government policy orientation, and there are people who act dormantly. And when those people who act proactively, proactively acts, like the case of the governor of Kano State or the governor of Kaduna State, El-Rufai, you think this one is too radical? They're acting within the same frequency of the government policy. Once you deviate from the government policy, you are called to order. If you're a minister or the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you have to act within the government given policy orientation. Otherwise, they fire you. You can extend it by your own personality. Like the case of El-Rufai, when he was Minister of Federal Government, Federal Capital Territory, bulldozing houses, doing it. He was still acting within the policy frequency of the government, except that he tended to overdo his own, given his own orientation. That is what you have to understand. If he deviates from if he had deviated, Obasanjo should have removed him. That is the point in government. What happens is that people give their, the coloration of their personality to a given position they act. It's like, let's say, for instance.
Okay, let's continue this discussion after, in the next 1 hour. Our guests are here and people are already joining us. I've just spoken with Dr. Pogo now. He's still on the road, so he may be able to join us later. But let's start the meeting and start recording. All right. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you to Elomba Television tonight. we have a very important discussion. The topic we are discussing tonight is the alarmingly dangerous state of insecurity in northern Nigeria. What is the federal government doing? We have among us tonight to discuss this topic, Dr. Tony Njenje, a conflict management expert. Dr. Njenje, you are welcome to that program.
Thank you, Elomba Television. We
have Dr. Ahmad Sajo, another security expert in our midst, who happens to be the former Adamawa State Commissioner for Information. Dr. Sajo, you are welcome to our program tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have Dr. Porous Mwogu, the National President's Middle Belt Forum. He has indicated he will be able to join us later. He's still on the road. So we look forward to having him in our midst. So let's start with Dr. Sajo. If not for anything, you are in the thick of the action. How will you describe the state of security in northern Nigeria today, sir?
Thank you very much for having me on this conversation. And I want to inform you that I think the state of security in northern Nigeria and probably in the entire country is a manifestation of some of the gaps that existed when non-state actors started, competing with the state over the ownership and the wielding of instruments of violence and instruments of coercion. When you allow non-state actors to begin to have access to instruments of violence, naturally they will challenge the state in issues of peace and security, and that is what we are witnessing. And it is a situation that is affecting every facet of our life. Because we have elements of insecurity, we're having difficulties in going to our farms to farm, which will affect food production, which eventually may also affect food security. Because schools are targeted, it's going to affect education, and some people may either withdraw their children from schools or refuse to send their children to school. Because markets are affected, the business, the economy of the northern Nigeria may be affected. And so because cattle rustling is involved, animal production at that level will also be affected. So it's becoming all-encompassing. And because it is all-encompassing, the danger it portends is also all-consuming. I think that's where we are now. We do understand that the government at all levels, the Nigeria Governors Forum just launched their own peace project 2 days ago in Abuja, and they've agreed to work beyond just the rhetorics and to support the security agencies in much more than just saying we will do, they're supposed to do. And if you notice that a number of governors have started equipping the military with mobility vehicles, motorcycles and things to pursue the bandits and insurgents and others who are bedeviling the north. So we believe that governments at all levels are trying their best, but the determination of these criminals to go beyond, safety limits is what we are concerned about. And I want to say very categorically that we ourselves, Dan, those of us that are in the media, are not really helping matters. I noticed that when I was a commissioner and a member of the State Security Council in my state, one of the areas I really appealed was the media, and we worked with the media. These guys, sometimes when you see them attack soft targets and the rest, they also they enjoy the publicity it gives them. and they breathe. They breathe.
But let me ask you, Doctor.
We must find a way.
Dr. Sajo, let me before we go into the nitty-gritty of some of these issues, and then to talk about the role of the media and so on, let me point out some statistics we have.
Yeah.
Right now, there appears to be more than 300 students in the dens of kidnappers in northern Nigeria, right now, as we speak, right now.
Yeah.
Yesterday, gunmen rode into a town, shooting into the air and killed 45 villagers. The last kidnapping incident, Greenfield University, they collected $500,000. The kidnappers of Bethel Baptist High School, we also learned they are also demanding $500,000 before they will release the students in their den. In one of the states in northern Nigeria, the kidnappers say, look, we can no longer feed the students. You must give us rice to continue to feed them until you are ready to pay the ransom before we release them. The other night, they killed 52 people on this, 42 people on the streets of a state in northwestern Nigeria. So almost every day, we are hearing of this news.
Let me ask you a very serious question. Are there differences amongst Nigerians? Are there Nigerians that are better Nigerians than other Nigerians? You know, in the Northeast, kidnapping people and forcing them to go and work as slaves, both sex slaves and physical slaves in Boko Haram camps had taken place for nearly almost all the 10 years. We have cried when military had recovered more than 10,000 people that have been kidnapped at various times. We're only talking now because it's affecting certain other Nigerians that we think are more Nigerians than us. They've been kidnapping all along, aside from the Chibok girls that made, news all over the world. They've kidnapped ordinary people on almost daily basis. They are still kidnapping ordinary people on daily basis in those places. In fact, now that they're asking for ransom, collecting and releasing people, it's even totally different. Remember Buniadi, when they went there to the school, the federal government college in Buniadi, they didn't kidnap anybody. They shot and killed those innocent children and left. What I am trying to say is that this thing has been on for quite some time.
Let me pick you up on what you said about Northeastern. Dr. Sajo, regarding what you said about Northeastern Nigeria, I remember when you were the commissioner of that Adamawa State. That was when I got in touch with you, actually. And then you always you were like giving running commentary on the activities of Boko Haram in those days. And yes. Does it alarm you that even after so many years you've left government and still now we have had a different government from this time from northern Nigeria, the situation in the Northeast is now so bad that we are now reading reports that ISWAP, or whatever they call themselves, have even conducted their own governorship election in Borno State, appointed the governor.
Daniel, that is highly misleading. That is unfortunate. And that is the selective manner in which the media reports issues of security, particularly in the Northeast and even in northern Nigeria. Let me tell you what happens.
Okay.
Since the establishment of Boko Haram, they had a government structure. The leader of Boko Haram, the overall leader, which was Shekau before Shekau was killed, the leader is usually called the Imam. He holds the rank of the president. Under him, there is a prime minister stroke military commander called Qaid Kaidawa. Below Qaid Kaidawa, there is always a Munzur, who is the governor. Below the governor, there is a military commander called Qaid. Below the Qaid, there is a mayor or a unit or a local area command leader and commander called Irasi. Below the Irasi there is an Amir. This structure had always been there. So what happened is that ISWAP and the mainstream Boko Haram had a clash. Shekau has been killed. They have appointed a new leader. That leader had taken charge. Naturally, when you have a government, during the time we were having military coups in Nigeria, you know what happens. As soon as a government is overthrown, a new government comes, all the military governors automatically become sacked. And then probably it goes to the military. They change the chain of command and put new commanders that are loyal to the new leader. That is what is happening in Borno. It's not like a new government. There has always been a Munzur for Borno province. There has always been a Qaid for Borno province. But when a new commander, a new leader emerges, you go and do what they call Ba'iyah. Means you go and pay homage. You reiterate your loyalty. Then new appointments are made in line with the new loyalties. So this new appointment is nothing new. They've always had appointments of people who serve as governors, who serve as premiers, who serve as mayors.
Okay, but does it alarm you now? Yes, I get that. But does it alarm you? Does it alarm you? Does it alarm you that rather than weakening?
Okay. There was no election. The election aspect of it is a media hype. There was no election. In fact, they select their leadership from the ranks of their military commanders. Okay. When we had military coup, did you elect your military governor?
Okay, okay. Let me withdraw. Let me withdraw that section of election of the governor. I will come back to you, Dr. Sajid. Okay, yes, I'll come back to you with some issues I wanted you to highlight, because I know your knowledge about the security situation in northern Nigeria is very, very wide. So I'll come back to you. But let me ask Dr. Nwezi with this question. Do you see the government abdicating their responsibility to our northern brothers in Nigeria? Now, Dr. Nwezi, what do you have to say with that regard?
First of all, before I talk, I think Dr. Sergio is was being too emotional about the definition of election. Election doesn't mean, it doesn't have to mean by casting votes. It doesn't mean by queuing up or by conducting ballot paper. Selection is election. Once you choose, once you make a choice from a group, that is election. So there was nothing misleading. As a pressman, you should know that there's nothing misleading about definition of what happened in Israel as election. There's nothing wrong about that. No, and I don't think it's something that will generate emotions about media hype and so on and so forth. There was an election and it was stated. And there was a video clip on it. Even if the election was not conducted, there was no campaign the way we do it in our former democracy. After all, under communist regimes, they still select their members, they call it election. So let's just not be emotional about conceptual definitions, which have various angles and various faces and various views within a particular, political point. But let's go to the main issue, and that is the issue of the conflict in northern Nigeria. Because, well, I want to say one thing. The way the federal government handled the ESN, Eastern Security Network, and IPOB, and the way they're handling the present Igboho nightmare in western region of Nigeria, if they had been as proactive as they are doing today, I don't think the banditry and even Boko Haram will be there. And I've always said it, that the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria sees the present conflict as another form of military economy. You see, the governors of those states who want the banditry to continue, they want Boko Haram to continue, because it means more security votes. And those people who have been in government knows that from local government to the presidency, you don't give account of your security votes. So, and that is why people who supply, let me tell you something about, those of us who have elements of, who have elemental knowledge of military strategy. I have passed through that Boko Haram from Cameroon at the height of the conflict and came to the border, town where I have garrison, where I have a large refugee camp, and then moved in with a convoy of more than 100 vehicles to Dikwa, from Dikwa to Medugri. And I passed also through that Cameroonian side, interacting with members of Cameroonian armed forces. At one point, we were driven back by Boko Haram. And I want to tell you, with my study of that particular terrain, if Nigeria commits a division into operation, Boko Haram will leave. We're coordinated by Chad and Cameroon, Boko Haram will go. It's not a question of sending one pickup load of one Hilux, Toyota Hilux pickup load of soldiers and send them on suicide mission, facing those with modern automatic weapons. They are not yet ready to handle that Boko Haram. And I bet you, if someone like me is put in power for just 6 months, Boko Haram will grow. Talking about banditry, remember, Adam, on 11th of April, 2013, I was on Channels television. I was on Channels television, Sunrise, where I warned about this impending danger, especially when arms were moving from Mali. And when I was warning them, the other Fulani, anchor who is no longer there, was telling me, he was ushering me. I told him, later Nigeria will know, because the arms were moving from Libya to Mali, where the Tuaregs are fighting, and from Mali to Chad to Nigeria. And those bandits, and those bandits were later employed. Those bandits actually came for 2015 election. And when they came, they could not go. From coming for the election, they now went into prospecting in gold mining in Zamfara and Katsina states. And nobody's talking. And those prospection, those gold mining prospection was undertaken, was even sponsored by the same politicians who armed them. So it came to a point. It's like bringing a lion into your house to tame your goat. By the time that lion grows and finishes the goat, the lion will turn against you. They know the bandits. They know those who are behind them. And that is why someone like Alhaji Abubakar Gumi, who confidently made the bandits discuss with them, even negotiate ransom, take money and give them and come back. We've even tell them bold enough to tell the federal government to grant them amnesty and discuss with bandits. Under what political state, under what political framework do you discuss with criminals, murdering people, kidnapping some people, and killing them with impunity? And yet, nobody has been brought to book. Last time, after too much pressure from members of the public, Alhaji Gumi, Abubakar Gumi, was invited by DSSS, only for him to come out and was asking the DSSS to apologize to him. I don't understand, because you see, for some of us who actually know the ethno-religious demography of the North, we know that those people who are being killed in Zamfara today are not Fulani. People are looking at Zamfara. It is only even Sokoto is not, even Sokoto state is not uniformly Hausa Fulani.
Okay, before we go, Dr. Mwezigo, before we go into the ethnographic concept or background of some of this struggle, let's ask Dr. Sajo the same question. Do you think that the federal government has kind of surrendered the North to these bandits? Let me read to you what President Buhari said before you answer that question. President Buhari said that the federal government has massive power it could deploy to defeat the bandits and other terrorists. He has said it a lot of times in press statements we got from the State of Assembly that they have the power to deploy to stop this. And in one of his most famous interview with Arise Television, he said, we will speak to those bandits in a language they will understand. And despite that, the news we are still having up till today is very, very alarming. Right now, like I said, every day we see here the reports of kidnappings, killings, banditry in the North. What is the problem? Has the federal government surrendered to the banditry in the North or what? Dr. Sajo.
Let's get certain things very clear. I am one person that feels appalled whenever ethnic profiling comes into normal discussion. I must say that there is no Fulani anchor on Channels TV. There is none. So this concept, this ethnic profiling, we should stop it. It does it adds no value to our discussion. The truth about it is that the federal government is definitely going after the bandits. You cannot say they're not going after the bandits. They are going after the bandits. But you know, in every military conflict, there are rules of engagement. Unfortunately, in this conflict, the rules of engagement are one-sided. The Nigerian military, as a trained military, the Nigerian security forces, police and everybody, they are trained. They have to keep to rules of engagement. They have to respect certain rules of engagement. But they are dealing with an enemy that does not have any rules of engagement in its books.
When you say rules of engagement, what exactly do we mean here?
There are rules of engagement.
Like, can you explain to some of us who are not conflict management experts?
Like, for example, you know, in any armed conflict, women and children are supposed to be spared. But you're dealing with satanic forces that do not even understand that anybody needs to be spared.
So how does that impact on effectiveness in dealing with the bandits? I'm trying
is to reduce the level of collateral damage. Sometimes they use human beings as human shields. Okay. Sometimes they use villagers. They use women and children as human shields. You can't go after them. You will get a higher number of collateral damage. And because you have rules of engagement, sometimes they move along with their wives and children and things like that. If you have rules of engagement on your side, you have to be very careful. But they don't.
Dr. Sajo, what is your response? What is your response to Dr. Mweziwe's statement that if the federal government has deployed the same energy, the same motivation they used in dealing with ESN, that Boko Haram would have been a thing of the past? Look at this. Let me show you, before you go on, let me show you the statistics. I'm sure you will be seeing what I'm
seeing the statistics.
In Northwest.
Let us understand one thing. Let us understand one thing. Whereas the ASN, for example, goes out on the streets and says they are enforcing stay-at-home order, right from the time Boko Haram started till today, they don't come out brazenly and issue orders and enforce them the way the others do. Let us put them differently. These ones walk in the streets. These ones, as you know, a former president of this country said, they operate like ghosts. When you have to confront people directly, it's totally different from people that come and hit and run. You see, when you have to use the kinetic method, you use it on people that confront you directly. But when you have to understand that some element of non-kinetic methods have to come in, you have to sit down also and approach the issue in that light. What is happening in this country is that the conflicts are all security threats, but their mode of operations are totally different. And so the response must be according to the mode of operations. And I am telling you that these bandits and insurgents, they cowardly use women and children sometimes as human shield. They do it. And you have to be very careful. Sometimes they use innocent people. And I told you that they keep changing. Now we're talking about kidnapping people and collecting ransom. When they started, they went to Boniadi, they killed everybody. So what we are saying is that the federal government has been, don't forget Boko Haram is about 10 years old. I remember, for example, that my parents had to flee and become refugees in Cameroon. I remember my hometown was taken over and the name of the hometown was changed from Mubi to Madinatul Islam. I remember all of these things, but these things are no longer there like that. Things have moved some steps away. We are not yet there. I know that the Cameroonians, the Chadians, and the Nigerians have been trying to recover the Lake Chad Basin area. I remember I attended an international workshop on what to do with the Lake Chad Basin in Marwa, Cameroon, hosted by University of Marwa. I remember that this has been, in fact, not only Nigeria, Cameroon, and Chad. As in West Africa country, as far as Senegal had contributed troops to defeat these people. We know all this. We know that there are concerted efforts. The multinational joint task force has been working. The nation's military have been working. The Cameroonian military have been working. The king of, in Cameroon, for example, they abducted the wife of the then deputy prime minister. And they kept her for about 9 months, along with the king of Kolfata. Later, the Cameroonians were able to pay ransom and get them out. A lot of things have been happening behind the scenes that everybody is working to defeat this criminal element. Crime is crime. One of the things we can do to ourselves is to begin to profile crime in the context of a particular ethnic group or a particular group. We should not profile criminals in that manner. We should call criminals criminals wherever they perform their criminal activities. There are a lot of theories and stories. If you are talking about people coming for 2015 election, there is practically no proof, but it fits into the narratives of demonizing a certain section of this country. We know this for a fact. But we also know that there is an international dimension. I have joined the military in an operation where we are able to capture certain equipment facilities. We've taken them out. They have checked on the end user, who signed the end user certificates, and we know who the signatories to the end user certificate belong. There are international dimensions, there are national dimensions, there are local dimensions. We know that this banditry, and then there's a nexus. We have to agree.
Dr. Saja, are you able to enlighten us on these international dimensions to this banditry in northern Nigeria?
There's a lot of international dimension to it. There's a lot of international dimension to it. And like I said, quite a number of some of the equipment belongs to certain countries and organizations that, people know. But what I want you to accept and to understand is that everything that is happening has a nexus. There's a nexus between insurgency, banditry, and kidnapping for ransom. Because each and every one of these groups, either you call them bandits, or you call them insurgents, or you call them, they need resources. They survive, they operate with resources. And how do they get the resources? This is when the banditry started, it started basically as cattle rustling, because they would steal cattle and go and sell them and make money. But when they realized that holding one person and collecting ransom was giving them higher funds, than cattle rustling. They abandoned cattle rustling and went into kidnapping. These are, you know, there is the economy of it.
All right.
At the point they were collecting taxes in markets. They were collecting protection fee from farmers. But these are peanuts compared to you kidnap people and you put a higher figure on it and you get the money. So the thing is, we must accept the fact that there's a nexus between what is happening in the whole setup. The insurgents, and they are all connected by the fact that they are raising money for their
thank you. Well, thank you. Dr. Mwezi, something still baffles some of us with the high rate of insecurity in northern Nigeria. Northern Nigeria used to be the most secure section of the country just less than 10 years ago. And today it appears to have, you know, overwhelmed the president the way he used it. He was really overwhelmed. What went wrong? What is the genesis? What went wrong?
Well, I think we should be a little bit academic in this area. I'm an academic. I'm not a politician. I'm a researcher, and I've traveled. And then I don't think somebody will tell me I should avoid ethnic profiling. I know the basis of my studies. And he's from North, but I've traveled more than him in the whole West Africa. I lived in the North. I've traveled to nearly all West African countries and Central Africa on crisis-ridden areas. So it cannot be talking about ethnic profiling when you are defining a crisis within a political and regional context. And he's telling me that is sentimental. And I think we should try to be a little bit professional in our arguments.
But you must, you must accept. But you must accept that. Let me ask you. Let me point something out. But you must accept that you cannot simply tar an entire ethnic group with criminality anywhere in the world. It doesn't work that way.
You know, he said, I don't know. I am talking from my professional experience. And now let
me
tell you,
Doctor, you are the one that even said.
Let me talk. Please, I am talking. You were speaking
for the program.
Dr. Sajo, can I talk? You were talking. You were talking, and I kept quiet.
You are the one using sentiment.
Allow me to talk, please.
Professional. How do you know that you travel more than me?
You were talking and kept quiet.
Exactly. Okay, let's calm down. Let's calm down. Doctor. No, Dr. Mwezi.
I don't want to be rough with you. Let it allow me to talk.
To disrespect each other. Where have you stayed in the north?
We have been talking
in the north. Where have you traveled?
I don't. You know, he.
No. Wait,
listen,
can we
let's also respect each other?
Dr. Mwezi, wait.
He's not more professional.
Listen.
Hello.
I don't know the kind of PhD you have.
Say.
I don't know the kind of you are a doctor, and I don't know the kind of PhD you have.
And I'm saying it again.
I am a historian, and I have my.
Dr. Mwezi, just wait. Can we just wait? Can we just wait?
I don't
know the kind of PhD you have.
Never so you should on channels.
Yes, please.
You're being sentimental. There was no full on channels.
You have spoken.
All right. Let's. I know these two eminent gentlemen personally.
It's my
wait now, Dr. Tony, wait. Dr. Mwezi, just wait. Can you wait?
I don't know what you said.
Can you wait? Can you wait? Let me explain something. I think it's. I will agree with Dr. Sajo here that when you are making a presentation, and you say, I have traveled more than you, I know more than you, it doesn't speak well for this level of conversation. Because It doesn't
because
speak
he said, I don't know anything.
Wait now.
I did not know what I was talking.
Wait?
He has no right to say that.
I'll mute you again.
No right to say, I did not know what I was talking.
Wait. Can you wait?
Yes. Who is he to say that? Did you train me?
Okay, my point is, I've known both of you very well. I know your academic pedigree, and so it doesn't speak well to say you have traveled more than you have traveled more than you. But I know that both of you have actually traveled very well, researched this subject very well, researched the subjects of security outside Nigeria, Cameroon. Dr. Saja has also been to these West African countries you're talking about, just as you have. So you don't say you are from the north, but I know the north better than you. No, you cannot do that. If we cannot go on with this level of conversation, I think I will allow the audience to start asking questions now so that we'll deal with the question. This is a question, a topic that concerns every Nigerian, and it is very, very important that we understand what is happening. So having clarified this point, I will unmute you now. Let me take questions from the audience. Let's not profile any ethnic group. At this level of discussion, we don't do that. We can do that if we are having a chat on them outside, but on this platform, we don't profile any ethnic group. We are here to deal with the issue of insecurity in Nigeria. Dr. Njenje, I will allow you to complete your point about why has it been difficult for the federal government to deal with this question of insecurity that has blossomed in the north. Are you able to continue with that?
I will continue, but I don't think people to tell me the alignment of my response to a particular question.
Just deal with the issue now, please. Deal with the issue.
Now, if ethnicity is a factor in a given conflict, religion is a factor in a given conflict, economy is a factor, social equality or inequality is a factor, nobody can tell, can distance any of them. These are historical variables that generate conflicts within a given society. So there's no question of sentimental attachment about profiling. You cannot discuss any conflict in Africa today without ethnic factor. Please, I want us to be, you see, I've come to a stage where people should not dictate to me the way I present my views. My gentle brother is from Adamawa. Adamawa State has more than 20 ethnic groups. 20. More than 20 ethnic groups.
My friend, we have 85.
Yes.
We have 85. You see, you are not displaying knowledge. We have 85 ethnic groups in Adamawa.
What did I say? I said more than what? You see, I said more than 20. Is you know what I said?
No.
I'm not.
Okay, let's.
I'm talking. I am talking. I'm talking, please. I said more than 20. I did not say 20.
We want to understand. We want to understand.
Yes.
Why has, that's my question.
Yes.
Why has this level of criminality, blossomed in northern Nigeria while it didn't used to be so? What caused it? Yes, that's what we want to know.
Fine. First of all, number one factor is the constituent leadership. Constituent leadership. When you are talking about constituent leadership, you are talking of the people, the characteristics of the people who are leading, who are the leaders who are the dominant leaders in the country today, and what is their traditional ideological orientation, their own objectives in government. And we are talking, and that's what we are talking about. Now, the ethnic, why it has been very difficult to control is, first of all, the leadership orientation, which is headed by the Fulani today. It operates within the frequency of conflicts, right from jihad, even through the First Republic. If you look at the TV riot, if you look at even the conflict with the Borno Youth Movement, if you look at the conflict of MPC with the Northern People's Party and NEPU, these are within the orientation of the people who are ruling. And as I've said it earlier, the orientation, this orientation also enables them to reap some economic gain from the conflicts. So if you connect, the nexus here is economic gain within a given conflict situation. This conflict going on, are people gaining economically? If many people are suffering, which particular population are suffering more, and which particular population are not suffering, are not suffering more? Those people who are suffering more, what is their connectivity with the ruling government? Those people who are least affected, what is their relationship with the ruling governments?
Okay, let me stop you here. Let me show these statistics again. Let us see whether it tallies with your explanation before we go back to Dr. Sajo. If you look at Northwest, for example, President Muhammad Buhari comes from the Northwest region of Nigeria. And the statistics here says 1,445 people have been kidnapped from Northwest Nigeria between January and June 2021, Buhari's zone. In the North Central, the Middle Belt, 942 people have been kidnapped. In the Northeast, where our honorable gentleman comes from, Northeast, 210 people have been kidnapped. Now, taking your explanation into consideration, who are gaining and who are suffering more, how does that fit into this narrative, these statistics, seeing that Buhari comes from the Northwest?
Okay, let's take from the Northwest. Where are the zone, where are the particular zone of the conflict? We are talking about 1,000. The major zones of this conflict.
Okay, yes. The major zone of the conflict in Northwest Nigeria is mainly
Niger and Zamfara states.
No. We're talking of Northwest. Wait, please, yes. Let's take it easy. In the Northwest is Niger State is not central. In the Northwest, we have the major zone where the kidnapping happens is Kaduna State, Katsina State, and Zamfara State. Yes. These are the hot zones.
Yes.
Buhari comes from Katsina.
Okay.
So how does that fit into your narrative?
Yes. Well, let us take the main concentration of the conflict. The major zones of the conflict are Zamfara, and Kaduna states.
Okay.
Yes. We are at home with the ethnic conflicts between the indigenous people of Kaduna State and the Fulani people there. We are at home about that, and the conflict is still going on. We also are aware the conflict in Zamfara State over the bandits. Zamfara State is a multi-ethnic state with Zabarama, with other people that are there. It's not just the Hausa and the Fulani. Where you can even have majority of Hausa and Fulani is Katsina State. Even Kano State is not all that Hausa, Fulani, and alone. So
okay, let me ask you this. I will allow other people to ask questions. When President Buhari came into power, before this kidnapping started, one of the major banditry activities he confronted is cattle rustling. I'm sure you listened to Dr. Sajo mention about that.
Yes.
Cattle rustling, that Buhari now gave a shoot-aside order against cattle rustlers. Today, it appears we are no longer hearing of cattle rustling today. Why is that?
Yes. First of all, cattle rustling is universal within northern Nigeria. Even that was even one of the weapons the thief people use against the Fulani and other people. So it is universal when you're talking of it's an age-long criminality in northern Nigeria. And now banditry came up, which is, with sophisticated weapon, because cattle rustling was normally done locally with local gun and local people who organized in a group to attack few herdsmen and take their cows. But now you are seeing people who are being sponsored by a cartel that started with prospecting gold in Zamfara State. Remember, the conflict is gold and prospecting gold mining in Zamfara State, which is yet to be handed over to federal government. It's still a private concern. So with that gold mine coming up and people now coming into the gold mine and divesting the interest of most of the bandits, most of these bandits from the gold mine, they now descended on kidnapping, which they have seen as also lucrative.
Okay, let me stop you there. Dr. Sajo, do you agree with this narrative?
No, but I've told you my own position. And we're talking here about conflict merchants. Conflict merchants are not necessarily the ones you see carry the guns or do the kidnapping. Conflict merchants are people who are quite comfortable elsewhere, who think that they can use the conflict to feather their nests and to increase their wealth. And we have seen that severally. How much does one AK-47 cost? You think the ragtag person you see, dirty, sometimes with torn slippers, carrying it, you think he has the money to buy AK-47? Definitely there are big-time conflict merchants behind the conflicts we are witnessing. And several have now been caught, selling arms, including, unfortunately, people who are within the security forces. So there are a lot of people that are beneficiaries. And unfortunately, and very honestly, some could be within the system, within the government. Some could be within the security agencies. And some could be within the business community. It has become an economic activity. And because it is an economic activity, key players within the economic sphere could participate. And since the insurgency started, we have complained, we have done studies, we have done researches, we have even exposed some conflict merchants in this. I was press secretary to Governor Murtala Nyako, if you remember. Nyako was almost killed, because he took samples of equipment that were captured, military equipment that were captured at Boko Haram, and went abroad and investigated those who signed the end user certificate for those facilities to know exactly who bought them and for what purpose. And when he came back, the then government went after him. He was forcefully impeached illegally, and he was almost to be killed, if not because he escaped out of this country. And so we know that the issue of conflict merchants coming in, to fund, criminal activities had always been there. But today, we will be simplifying the conflict and making it very difficult for solutions to be found if we look at it purely as either an ethno-religious conflict or a conflict between demographies. I think it's beyond that. And I tend to believe more in the fact that there is an economic aspect of it.
Are these conflict merchants, are they more powerful than the federal government? That is the question we are asking.
They are not more powerful, but they are more elusive. The federal government is made up of persons you can mention the names of the persons, but criminals, elusive criminal merchants, are people you don't even know. You may even sit with them and discuss strategy with them, whereas they are part of the process. This is where we need to go deep, and then so simplifying the thing, making it look very simple. Like when you're looking at the different regions, gold mine has always been there. Remember that there was a time, the foreign media was busy talking about poisoning, the poisoning of people in localities where the gold is mined. Children were born with deformities. People were dying in numbers because some poison gas was released from the mining site. It has always been there. But today, what is happening is that the economic the economic benefits of the conflicts have become a kind of lucrative venture, such that certain other individuals with vested interest, powerful individuals with vested interest, may have stepped in. I told you that when they started cattle rustling, it was to sell cattle and make money. But when they realized that you need to capture 100 cattle and pursue them across the bush before you could get half of the ransom that you get from kidnapping one individual, they abandoned cattle rustling and went for the one that gives greater dividend. So these are some of the things that are happening. And
well, thank you very much. Let's now take questions from our listeners. And if Dr. Bitrus Pogu, if you are here and I'm not been able to identify you, please allow you to unmute yourself so that we will identify you to take part in the discussion. The first person to raise his hand to ask question is Elder Tango Ugochukwu. You can now unmute yourself and ask questions, followed by Mr. Chinedu Mogu. So, Tango, you can unmute yourself, please.
My question is very, very simple. As ABCD, this everybody knows this is organized crime. What intention? Because this is started long ago. Even the Boko Haram issue. Buhari, who said any attack on Boko Haram is attack on the north. Despite the system or the condition Dr. Nwezigwe is talking, it's making sense. If he could, he will prove his point. There is partial foul play. I want to ask Sajo, this Ahmed Sajo, what real effort he think that will solve this problem? Because him is in government and he's an insider too. What is his own suggestion to bring this problem to an end? It's okay.
Okay,
right,
thank you very much.
Thank
you very much. I think it's very simple. When I was in government, we had suicide bombing on almost on weekly basis. And there's a way we handled it, and it abated till today. At least mercifully, we don't have suicide bombings in Adamawa State. What we paid more attention to then was intelligence gathering. And I think what is lacking in this system presently is that the intelligence gathering is weak, and the synergy among the forces is also very weak. If we can have greater synergy among the forces, and if we can have greater intelligence gathering and greater cooperation with communities, I think we can overcome these things. Because, I had cause to say on forum like this, what we did, we connected with community leaders at all levels. About 8,700 and something were selected amongst our communities who became our eyes and ears, who were giving us intelligence about movements of people. These are people who move within communities. When they come to, for example, when they come to collect royalties from businessmen in market, in Sokoto, in another place, they come openly. When they come to collect protection fee from farmers, they come openly. But these people are afraid of reporting. They are afraid because sometimes they are exposed. So we need a lot more, commitment on the part of security forces to first synergize, to protect information sources, to do greater intelligence. I think if we go that way, we're likely going to win. And most importantly, the cardinal objective, military objective of an internal security operation is to win the hearts and the minds of the people. And I must say, with all sense of responsibility, that the military believes that is the jackboots that they march on with within communities that will secure those communities. I think greater interaction with the communities to win their hearts and minds, to make them partners in the peace project will be one way to defeat the insurgents and the bandits and the kidnappers and everybody. Sometimes these people move long distances. They move in convoys. They move with noise. So we need greater intelligence and we need greater cooperation between the forces and with the forces and the communities.
All right, we thank you. Dr. Mwizi, well, let's take further questions because of our time, and then you can now comment with the next question or the last one if you are so inclined. Mr. Njenje, please.
Thank you for hosting this. My contribution is by way of letting them explain more of some of the things we have thought the way to go in terms of this conflict. First is that do they not see deep economic challenges as part of the issues, because where these things started, you see a large army of radicalized, uneducated young people who do not have access to livelihood opportunities. Could it be part of the challenge so that when looking towards the solution, you can look at it from that area? Second is the issue that, try to cause some challenge. Is there a relationship between those who drive the leadership of the states and the way these conflicts are being addressed? For example, we saw that at some point in time when some people who are in power today were in the opposition and the government made effort to deal with some of those issues frontally, their reactions, were, construed to even be in support of those who, were criminals and who, were fighting these battles. And now we see that there seems to be some kids global approach to the challenges. So first is there no correlation between economy and lack of opportunities on education, radicalization to these conflicts? Is there no correlation between politics, ethnicity, and religion, with these conflicts? Can't we look at it from that perspective? Can there be a national approach to addressing challenges of insecurity, no matter who is involved and whose us is God?
Thank you very much. Let's start with Dr. Njenje this time.
Okay, that's a very nice. It's complicated but straightforward. The economic factor has always been the basis of definition of conflict in Northern Nigeria, but it does not hold water. The variables there do not support it. Because presently, the North have controlled the oil wells in Nigeria. The other time, the Sultan of Sokoto talked about having 23 oil wells. The NNPC is controlled by them, from managing director to the least. The post authority is control of them. Everything, all the economic, even the banks, they've nearly bought over all the banks. So and these are particular people, not because we deceive ourselves when we talk of North. You see, we are talking of the alienation, the actual people who are encouraging the conflicts are the people who have the money and who are in power and who have the ability to also protect themselves from the arms of the government. So it has nothing to do with the economy. It has to be, first of all, ideological orientation. Manifest ideological orientation. What is the basis of this conflict? The destabilization of a country will give the dominance of this country into the perpetual control of some particular group. Because under peaceful situation, people can now come out to challenge legally. Like the DSSS has right to pick anybody without question and even move on and kill somebody. So it's like they went to some Igbo's house the other time and shot, what of his man? They said the people just said he was shot and dead. Even when we kill our animals, we cry. But these days, killing has become so common in Nigeria that people just say, oh, that man has been shot. And people continue moving normally. Whereas an advanced country can take because of one citizen, like America or Britain, we take because of one citizen, or Israel, to invade a country.
Let me make a contribution here. The last question, when he talked about economic factors, I think he will mean, does poverty contribute to this? Does the poverty in the general citizenship contribute to this conflict?
No, just as I said, poverty is not a factor. because those people who are actually
benefiting from
even
it.
look at
Okay.
yes, it does not, because let us even look at the Fulani herdsmen. They're not poor. I remember one of my students, one of my postgraduate students, a Catholic priest, once told me that when he was coming down from morning service, he saw a Fulani young man taking his cattle were eating from the farm. And he told him, man, why are you doing that? He told him, man, farm, this is just one farm. What he's telling you that all these things and all those crops are not up to the cost of one cow. And the man just left. So when you are talking of banditry, it is not poverty because they have their livelihoods. You are talking of the Bororo, who are actually the main fighting force of the Fulani oligarchy. They are not poor, and they live within their economic cultural context. They're okay.
Okay, we thank you. Because of our time, let's ask this question briefly to Dr. Saju, briefly, so that we take other questions. Does economic factor play a role, Dr. Saju?
I think we must contextualize our discussion within the realm of truth. The truth is that when somebody tells you that it is illiteracy that fuels this thing, there is illiteracy, but you remember Boko Haram started as a protest by people who were educated. That's why it is called Boko Haram. Boko Haram means Western education is forbidden. The young people who started the protest told their certificates. They were most of them were graduates. So I think lack of economic opportunity is definitely at the root of it. And lack of economic opportunity goes along with injustice. You know, there is a lot of unfairness and injustice. And then let me also correct one notion. 90% of the cattle you see the cattle herders following do not belong to them. Most of them belong to those of us that are elites in the city, and elites of all ethnic nationalities and all groups. We give them the cattle to follow. 90% of these cattle do not belong to them. I know this for a fact. So right. the issue of them, being wealthy does not even arise. It's not even a question of somebody being wealthy or not wealthy. I think the lack of economic opportunities, go beyond individuals, go beyond groups. It's a national sin. We need to reconfigure our system in such a way that it provides economic opportunities.
Let's take more questions so that both people will go to bed tonight. Mr. Felix Oti, please, can you ask your question?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. I have been listening to the conversation, and frankly, I must admit, almost every single day, I watch this program on TVC called Journalist Hangout. And every single day they discuss the security situation in Nigeria. It has become very bothersome. The two gentlemen, the two doctors that are talking, they all have valid points. What concerns me is this, and none of them have actually raised the issue of porous borders between Niger Republic and the northern states that were affected. Yesterday, I took out time to actually look at these states and the bordering nations around them. To Dr. Sajo, do you think that the Nigerian government should do more than enough to control the borders between Nigeria and Niger Republic? Because from the little I know about these bandits and insurgents, they easily move from Nigeria to Niger Republic and back unchecked and uncontrolled. That is one. Two, considering the fact that these kidnappings happen in broad daylight, every single one of them, and it's always more than 100 people headed across communities, towns, and cities. Have you considered the fact that maybe the local leaders in these communities have a hand, either directly or indirectly, in perpetuating this banditry and kidnapping? Have the northern governors ever considered looking into that and beginning to arrest such situations? Thank you.
All right. Let's start with Dr. Sanjay this time, yes.
Thank you very much. I think it's very simple. From my village to Cameroon is a 2 minutes walk. 2 minutes, you are in Cameroon. I think the borders of Nigeria with Cameroon, Chad, Niger, and Benin Republic are not just porous, but they're actually open. They are open. In some of our localities, you hardly even know where anybody belongs. And a lot of us, our families are divided into two. The current member representing Dumo in Cameroon, the Cameroonian National Assembly, is my cousin. So it's very difficult to identify even the borders or where one person starts and where one person ends. You're talking about transhumans. They move, I think it's not Nigeria and Nigeria alone. Let me tell you, they move mostly from Central African Republic down to Mali and Burkina Faso. They move with their cattle. Those ones pass through all borders, porous or not porous. I think it's one of our major, impeding factors that is hard for us to police all our borders, and that people can commit crimes and cross across the border and go and see if they can get some safety. That is the reality of it. And in the issue of leaders, I tend to align myself to some extent with what you are raising. Because I told you that we tried it in Adamawa State when I was in government. We tried it by working in synergy with the local leaders. And we were getting prompt information as to movements within localities. Of course, we had a system, and that we were paying them monthly to give us this information, and we're getting the information. I think it will be difficult for anybody to cross a long distance within communities without the local leaders having some knowledge of it. So perhaps you are absolutely right that we need to work together. And I said it before, that part of military studies with respect to internal security operations is that you need to win the hearts and the minds of the people. You need to work with the people. The people must be part of the process of ensuring security of communities. And I think community leaders would have a role to do in that. And I believe that to a large extent, some community leaders will tell you that since they removed a role for traditional rulers in the Constitution, they are handicapped and they have no role to play. And so they watch events pass as they do. But I agree with you totally, absolutely, that we need to work with our community leaders to ensure the safety of our communities.
Well, thank you. Dr. Mwezi, would you have any point on this question, or do we take another question?
Yes, no, I have. I think the issue of porous borders, Nigeria is unique in that aspect, because I've passed through West Africa, and the only where you have actual control, border control is in southern part of Nigeria. North, you don't have control. When I cross from Cameroon, from Chad, northern Cameroon, into northern Nigeria, only one police, only one people were moving because it's just a small river that divided them. What is it called? The Nigerian man there, immigration was sleeping. The Cameroonian man was sleeping. People were moving freely. And then when I moved from there to Ileila, from Sokoto to Ileila, and cross over to Brinnington, nothing was. Okada will just carry you and you pass that way. No complaint. People are moving as if nothing. But when I move from Niamey to border with Burkina Faso, Niger and Burkina Faso, the border was well policed. Then from Burkina Faso to Ghana, in Boko, the border was well policed. Then Guinea and Sierra Leone border was well policed.
So what is wrong? So why is Nigeria different?
So I'm telling you, because it's not, it's not about, it is not general. I'm not telling you from practical experience. But once you go up north, it is open, nothing like border control. They take it that it is just a creation, it's just a continuation of the pre-colonial interaction of the people. They still believe they are the same. Because, for example, the Hausa are in Niger, the Zabarama, who are also in Niger, are also in Nigeria. They form part of Kebbi State, they form part of Zamfara State, part of Sokoto State and Kebbi State. And
let's take another question so that we move on, please. Yeah.
So Nigeria has a problem in that aspect.
Yeah. Mr. Paul Yusuf, please, can you make an intervention?
Thank you very much. I'll just make quick observations and maybe your panel will either agree or disagree with me. First of all, myth, the Arewa, the Northern Nigeria concept in the 80s and the 90s was a myth, but it was working. Then when Babangida came, he dispelled that myth. There was a time in Nigeria when you talk about Kaduna Mafia, everybody freezes. Okay, I was working for NTA Nigeria, so I would know a bit about those things. Now, what was holding Northern Nigeria together then was this kind of perception that if there is a problem in the northern part of Nigeria, within one evening, one of the emirs will call a meeting in the palace and that problem will be solved. Tomorrow morning, you won't hear anything about that problem again. That is when the North was strong and powerful. Now, the tables has lost its legs. It cannot stand. Those people you're calling bandits are criminals created by certain people who benefited from this Arewa concept, but did not help in developing and maintaining it. And those people have even lost control of these criminals that they created. There's nothing they can do about them. That is one observation that I wanted to make. And then the question I want to ask, if we can help talk about it, is the government actually, has it got the will and the determination to end this banditry that we're talking about in northern Nigeria in particular? We are in 2021. There are drones that can follow you and completely isolate you about 200 people and gun you down. The government of Nigeria can purchase these things. We have the money. Is the government really willing to end this thing? How can, like the last speaker's who question said, that people will come into a community and herd away children from a school, 200 and something children, and walk into the forest. It takes them hours to get to wherever they are going. There are helicopters. I just came back from Nigeria less than 2 months ago. I stayed there in 6 months in Kaduna, and I see helicopters sometimes hovering over my house. I don't know what they're looking for, but these same helicopters cannot go over in the bush and trace these people and see where they are and have a battalion or a company of Nigerian army surround that whole forest and get our children back for us. The question, does the government, because Daniel, you did say here, what is the federal government doing? Gentlemen, what is the federal government doing? Can't they really stop this thing with the danger we have in 2021?
Right, let's start from Dr. Sajo this time. Dr. Sajo, how do you respond to this? I see that energy has electricity in your area. I've been taken away.
We're used to it. We're not in London like you. You have to be brave to remain in Nigeria when you have opportunities to ship out. Anyway, the last speaker was very analytical and was very, 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 very very honest in mentioning one very important occurrence, that some people somewhere may have created a Frankenstein monster, and now it's beyond even their own control and may devour even them. I think that is an apt description of some of the situations we are facing today. Quite a number of people may have participated, knowingly or unknowingly, wittingly or unwittingly, to creating the situation we find ourselves in. And now the situation is almost getting out of hand. The second question, which is very germane, is the fact that the government have sufficient will to address this situation in the light of current technological advancement in the world. I want to assure the gentleman that, at least from where I come, Adamawa State, the Air Force Base, I have had cause to severally go and see the drones they have acquired, and we have seen they have sent the drones in action, and we have seen on the control panel, the computers, how the drones operate, how they do surveillance, and how they go and pick areas where they think insurgents are moving and the rest. But we also had one or two mishaps where either a wedding convoy or some other innocent set of people were identified as, insurgents by the technology, and they were bombed. There was also a bombing of an IDP camp in Borno at one time. So I cannot speak for the fact that there are errors committed by surveillance equipment, drones, helicopters, and even jet fighters. But the government have deployed some of those facilities. But what is happening, why they are not as effective as we want them to? I am not in government presently, and I'm not a military person. I cannot say why. But definitely they have these facilities and they deploy them from time to time. In fact, there was a time that a military helicopter crashed somewhere behind Modibo Adama University, going on an operation in the night, and they crashed there, and all the people inside died and things like that. So they've been doing that.
Dr. Sajo, let me throw this question to you again, even though I've asked a similar question. Somebody said I should ask you, do you think the federal government, if they have exerted the same amount of efforts against Eastern Security Network and against the Oduduwa agitators in Southwest, if they have extended the same efforts to deal with banditry in northern Nigeria, would they not have been more successful?
I think I think I told you earlier also, I've answered this question.
Yes, you have.
The scenarios are different. Whereas these ones go out on the streets of cities, these ones operate in the bush. Whereas these ones, the civilian element quickly disappear and keep a safe distance. These ones use the civilian element as human shields. There's a difference. And sometimes in the operations of the military, we must be honest that they want to reduce collateral damage as minimal as possible. At times, it's an impediment in achieving results, but they also have to do it that way. They have rules of engagement. If they go ahead and they kill everybody, including the women and children that are being used as human shields, the next thing you hear is that they are supposed to go to the International Court of Justice for genocide and for human whatever. So there are a lot of limitations, but that does not excuse the fact that if they go all out with similar political will, the situation would have been a little bit different. I accept that.
Dr. Mwezi, will allow me to take another question before your intervention, please, so that we will be moving ahead. Nnamdi K, please. Are you Nnamdi Kanu or another Nnamdi K? Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, yeah. So my question is, so the defense minister said communities should defend themselves. It was joked that they should arm themselves with catapults like David and Goliath. My question is, how can communities defend themselves within the limits of the law if they cannot buy or manufacture weapons? Thank you.
Sorry, can you come back with a question again, make it more clearer, unless my guests understand it. Can you make your questions clearer, please, if you don't mind? You have muted yourself again.
Okay, yeah, I'll do it again. How can communities defend themselves within the limits of the law if they cannot buy or manufacture weapons?
Right. Okay, let's hear from Dr. Njenje first this time. Defense Minister said communities should arm and defend themselves. How could they do that? To what legal limit should they go to buy arms to defend themselves?
That's when we are talking about the rules of the battle again, because in the battle against in military operation, there's no rule. There's no rule of the game there, because the enemy comes with all effort and will to overwhelm you. And the most engagements Boko Haram have been having with the Nigerian military forces, they've not been coming with their wives or their children. They kept themselves wounded. They come frontally, invaded them frontally with superior armed power, superior firepower. So I was a kid. I was a kid during the Nigerian Civil War. So I experienced war. Bullets does not know anybody. Neither do bombs and whatever understand the age or the gender of the victims. Minister's statement is a political statement, and it shows how dejected and how defeated the present regime is in controlling the military, the military challenges, security challenges facing us. You're asking the communities to arm with what? Under which license? When arms and ammunition are outlawed, you cannot hold it without even, you cannot hold automatic weapon, you cannot purchase it. So with machetes or with cutlasses or daggers or what? So it's just a political statement. And it shows that there is one reason, if a defense minister could say such words, is one evidence that the present federal government lacks the willingness, lacks the strength, and the principled stance of a democratic leadership to handle the present imposing monumental security questions in Nigeria. And as I've said it earlier, it's not a question of rules of the game. Bandits have zones, and when no banditry group goes into operation with their wives and children.
All right.
Yes.
So because of our time, because we have only 3 minutes.
Let me conclude. The northern, you see, the Eastern Security Network own is even more complicated, because it's like a guerrilla warfare within buildings. It's even more complicated. But that one, if you have been to Zamfara State, there are bushes there, but they're still amenable to easy armored operation. I bet you, if the federal government takes an armored brigade into Boko Haram territory, they've never taken a brigade. They've never taken a whole brigade into operation against. Let them try it once. Take armored brigade into Zamfara State. Take it into Sambisa Forest. Boko Haram will run out. It's not a question of sending one pickup load, one Hilux, Toyota Hilux pickup with few soldiers and ask them to go and confront Boko Haram. Last time, every time we continue losing army commanders, the other time a colonel was buried in military honor. Do you know what it takes to train an army officer? What it costs? And we don't look at it that way.
Thank you.
We just use it and pass away as nothing is happening in Nigeria. A colonel dies, a colonel of Nigerian army dies, and people just gloss over it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
let's take another question. We will still round up. Mazi Okoye, please.
Thank
the
you,
last
Dan.
question.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dr. Sanjo and Dr. Tony. My first question is to Dr. Sanjo. Dr. Sanjo, I know that this ethnic dimension to our discussion tonight, sort of in a way, modules the water of the conversation, so to say. But however, do you see any reason why people see things that way? Because since Buhari assumed office, it just seems like the violence has scaled to a completely new level regards to what we are seeing during Jonathan Goodluck's administration. And the second question is, do you see Buhari administration handing over to the next administration a better secure Nigeria than the one he inherited? The next question is to Dr. Tony. Dr. Tony, you have traveled a lot, like you said, and have studied these things. You're a conflict management expert. What is your solution to this multi-headed hydra of security challenges in Nigeria? Because you mentioned there's ethnic dimension to it, religious dimension to it, economic dimension to it. What would be your ultimate solution to that? Thank you.
All right, let's start with Dr. Sajana, please. Thank you. Thanks very much, Okoye.
Thank you very much, Okoye. I think it's, to a large extent, it all depends on where one stands. From where I stand, from my own state, where about 1/3 of the state was occupied by Boko Haram, and most of our people were either refugees in Cameroon or internally displaced persons in other parts of the country. The situation is not worse, it's better, because we have recovered the whole of our state, and we have very few, if any, IDPs. The last time I went to Minawawo in Cameroon, what we had was less than 10% were from Adamawa, and we returned them back to Adamawa, and they returned back to their homes. So as far as we are concerned, we think that from that position, things are better. But because the conflict had been democratized, so to say, it has gone to areas where there were no conflict before. Yes, the situation is, the dimension has increased in the sense that areas that were hitherto peaceful are now in conflict. And I think it's not a very good commentary for our country. Whether the government will hand over a more peaceful and more secure country or not depends on a number of factors. And one of these factors includes, of course, the political will to support the security forces. And then another of the factors is the fact that the security forces also must be more committed, and the rogue elements amongst them must be identified and eliminated and at least put aside. And then the cooperation between the security forces, the government, and the communities must increase. And perhaps if they do also this and some other activities, the situation may be better than what we have today.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mweziwe, please.
Okay, first, to solve the position, we must understand the state of the matter. The present conflict in Nigeria has a nexus with international conflict system. What is happening in Nigeria is not an isolated instance. There are the same conflict in Central African Republic. There are the same conflict in Niger Republic. There are the same conflict in Burkina Faso. There are the same conflict in Mali. So they are interconnected. And let us even look at, and we also look at the Lake Chad Basin, the coalition, the Joint Task Force confronting Boko Haram, consisting of Nigeria, Cameroon, Chad, and Niger. We find that the major powerhouse there is Niger. And this Niger is being empowered by France. He gets this money, you know, they also have their military in Burkina Faso and in Mali. So Chad, which is the center of this conflict, which is the champion of this conflict, reaps a lot of money from international support. So first, if this crisis subsides, there will be no need for France or Britain or United Kingdom or America or whatever to be giving Chad that conflict. If you go through that way, you find that the Chadian zone is secured from Boko Haram attack. They are free from Boko Haram. Only Cameroon, Nigeria, and Niger Republic. So that international dimension, once it is found, for example, France has talked about reducing their intervention, their troops, you know, in West African region. Possibly reducing their troops may also lead to reducing the amount of grants they give to these countries who believe that once the crisis on, just like in Nigeria, yes, then making fair, if found that this international dimension also has to link it with international jihad system, as you can see, is what. And for it to be solved in Nigeria, you remember when Njenje was chief of army staff under Jonathan, and he took serious proactive action dealing with Boko Haram. Most of these totally were even talking about reporting to international criminal court or whatever, ICC, because he was being proactive. And for that reason, Jonathan had to remove him. So first of all, for this crisis, and I repeat, for this crisis to be defeated in Nigeria, we must have a leadership who is disconnected from international jihad system. As long as you have a government in Nigeria which has sympathy with international jihad network, this conflict will persist in Nigeria.
Right. Well, thank you very much. We will take the concluding comments, and let's invite our listeners who have joined this meeting that if you would like to stay on after our guests may have defeated, to have some discussion about the events happening in Nigeria now from 2023, how citizens can play a more effective role to influence who the next president will be. You are invited to join that discussion that will not be recorded or streamed. Finally, my last question that will allow our guests to give their summing up comments would be, it's as if the last statement at the chat room pricked what I wanted to ask about the withdrawal of French forces from the Sahel region. It appears that France has been, well, some say a stabilizing factor, some will say a destabilizing factor, Central African Republic in the Sahel region and into Nigeria. Now that France announced yesterday or day before yesterday that they will be reducing their influence in that Sahel region and by reducing their armed forces, do we foresee any impact it will have on the security situation in Nigeria? Dr. Sajo, you first, and then please use this question to give us your concluding comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the international dimension to this crisis has always been there. Don't forget that the ISWAP, you know, ISWAP is a province, you know, of ISIS, meaning funds from ISIS flow into ISWAP activities. Don't forget also that France had always been, you know, interested in either the stability or the instability of a lot of our states in West Africa, to the extent that what happened in Chad, for example, was clearly an assassination of the president and something akin to a coup d'etat, but no international government or body had said it's a coup and we will not recognize the new government and things like that. I think the international dimension has always been there, and it depends on how the French withdrawal will play out, but I think it will result in some level of escalation, especially on the Lake Chad Basin region, because two things are taking place at the same time. The French stabilization force is withdrawing. The climate change is making the lechard itself to shrink, and livelihoods are being lost, means of livelihood are being lost. And I think that will escalate the conflict. That's no doubt about it. Concluding my contribution on this discussion is to say I appreciate everybody that listened, and I appreciate the platform that gave us the opportunity to make our own contributions. I want to say that such conversations should continue, because we need to understand more about what's happening in our own country, at least to be able to construct meaningful solutions to some of our problems. I think nothing can succeed without deep knowledge. But I also want to caution that as much as we want to throw out conversations about our country, we should try as much as possible to be more professional and less emotional, and stick more to the facts as we know them, rather than the sentiments or issues that are being bandied in the streets. There are a lot of things that we say, that are not actually very true. But then again, that's the beauty of being human, and that's the beauty of being Nigerians. I think the most important is that my closing remarks is that we must recover our humanity. Like my brother said, death no longer appalls us. People say only 3 people died and only 5 people died, and I think it's now beginning to become something like death of people or killing of people no longer, prick our conscience. And I think we should return back to our humanity and begin to feel quick whenever we lose a human life. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Dr. Njenje, please.
Well, thank you very much. Let me start from the beginning. I think as a scholar, when I disagree with somebody, I don't just tell somebody that is not saying the truth. When I tell you I'm not saying the truth, I give the correct answer. That is the rule in academic debate. That is one. Secondly, when we look at the French intervention, the only place in West Africa, in every French West Africa has a detachment of French military presence as part of their defense part. For example, in Chad, they have 5,000 French military men in Chad, but they're all dormant. It's only in Mali that we have the French military contingent being a bit, effective militarily. But the presence of French military regime is just, withdrawing is just about trying to create a cost effectiveness to the management of the military of the French budget. It's not that it will affect the security situation, either improve it or deteriorate, because they are not really active in the military operations. So, but what happens actually, if you look at the situation in Dabi, in Chad, why Dabi's son was quickly put in there was to sustain the same tact, the same agreement, because they were using Dabi as a stabilizing force. They knew that the man Dabi was a terrorist, that he came to power through terrorism. So it's like getting a good armed robber, say, look, you are not, now we want to use your talent as an armed robber to to demobilize the armed robbers among us. That was what they're using him. After all, the French were there when the same Dabi, sponsored Seleka and Seleka rebels who invaded the Africa Central and took over power there before the war outcry forced them, to leave. The French were there. They didn't stop Dabi. From undertaking. So the French presence there does not make any difference. It just is there. Yes. So all I want to say is that whether they withdraw or they refuse to stay, it has nothing to do. It just has to do with their budgetary system. It will now make, it will now make their management of, it will now reduce their defense budget. It will just reduce it. It has nothing to do with operation. Now, coming to my own position, I still maintain my position that the federal government is not ready to confront the security situation in this country. When they are ready, we know. As they operate within ethnic interests, and let me repeat it, that what matters to the government is Fulani interests, primarily. And the concept, and they've been driving it by trying to use the concept of North. When they appoint their members to ambassadorial position, United Nations, to EFCC, to whatever, INEC, to even a Chief Justice, it is Fulani. But when it comes to confronting other ethnic groups, like confronting the Igbo or confronting the Yoruba, they talk of the North. And our Northern brothers, who also are oppressed as the Southerners are being oppressed, we keep quiet and we still be wearing the same toga of Northern Nigeria. And our foolish Southern leaders, mainly the Ohanesem, we still be classifying the whole North as their oppressors. That is irony of the Nigerian situation. Until we identify the real oppressor, until we identify that the real oppressor in Nigeria is Fulani, who are oppressing even the Hausa, their main landlords, the Hausa owners of the land.
Thank you very much.
Nigeria cannot move forward.
Thank you.
Ethnic profile, listen, Nigeria is made up of ethnic blocks. For me to be a Nigerian, listen, for me to be a Nigerian, I must belong to an ethnic group. If I don't belong to an ethnic group, I'm not a Nigerian. So the issue, and so you cannot define anybody telling you, oh, you cannot define Nigerian problem, you cannot solve Nigerian problem without ethnicity. That place is either being economically with the truth or is speaking abstractly from ignorance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tony Nwezigwe, for being with us tonight. And we also thank Dr. Sajo for making our